I'm in Idabel, Oklahoma today, and I'm checking out the grave of one of the Alcatraz inmates. His name was Samuel Shockley. Now, I drove several hours out of the way to film this as I felt like Samuel Shockley's life, including what he went through in Alcatraz, was pretty interesting. Again, he attempted to escape Alcatraz twice, and so I felt like his life story was pretty interesting enough to film and drive several hours out of the way for. So anyway, in this video, I'm of course going to show you his grave, which is right behind my car over there, and of course talk to you guys about his life, what crimes he committed to get to Alcatraz, and then of course his subsequent attempts to escape the rock. Anyway, so join me on this interesting story. I think you guys are going to enjoy it. So Sam Shockley was born January 12th, 1909 in Cerro Gordo, Arkansas, and was executed by the state of California on December 3rd, 1948 at the age of 39 years old. Sam Shockley grew up in Arkansas. His father, Richard or Dick Shockley, was a sharecropper, married 3 times, and had 8 different children. Sam had 7 siblings. As like a newborn baby, Sam actually survived an accident when his 9-year-old sister named Myrtle was looking after the other children while the parents were working on the farm. And she was carrying Sam, and she got too close to the fireplace and her dress caught on fire. She ran out of the house throwing Sam. Both were burned, but of course they both survived. Sam's mother, named Ann Year, who was Richard's second wife, died when Sam was 7 years old. And Sam started running away from home after his stepmother, Sally, died of malaria in 1920. When he was 12 years old, his father took him out of school to work in the fields, and he only had a 3rd grade education. By the age of 13, he started showing signs of pretty serious instability. In 1927, he left the family for good. Soon after that, he was actually arrested for stealing chickens, tires, and other products, and was sentenced to 1 year in the Oklahoma State Reformatory. And while there in prison, he was actually beaten severely by another inmate, which actually caused Sam to have extremely bad brain damage. In the early 1930s, he was arrested for drunkenness and disorderly conduct and escaped from the jail in Birmingham, Alabama, and was beaten by the officer that found him, giving him more head trauma. So already Sam had a lot of brain damage and other issues. In June of 1936, Sam ended up marrying a lady named Betty Moore. However, the marriage only lasted about 1.5 years. In March of 1938, Sam was arrested for robbing a bank in Paoli, Oklahoma, and he ended up kidnapping 2 of the employees, who were Mr. and Mrs. Pendley. He was sentenced on May 16th, 1938 to life imprisonment. Now, when he was examined by the prison psychiatrist at Leavenworth Prison in Kansas, he was determined to have an IQ of about 68, which is equivalent to about, I guess you would say, like a mental age of 10 years old or so. And of course, during his initial prison stay in Leavenworth, he started suffering numerous episodes of hallucinations and, of course, emotional instability. And instead of transferring him to the medical center at the prison in Springfield, Missouri, they ended up transferring him to Alcatraz on September 23rd, 1938, as they figured it would be better to have him there, as Alcatraz was, of course, extremely strict, and they thought that being there would keep him in line. When Sam arrived at Alcatraz, he ended up being placed in the isolation section and spent about 3 years in what's considered the hole or dungeon, where it's pitch black and you're stripped of all your clothes and all your items. This is when his mental condition rapidly deteriorated. He started displaying classic schizophrenic symptoms, including different auditory and other delusions and hallucinations. And this is also when his IQ dropped to 54, which would place him at a mental age of 8 years old. Like I mentioned in the intro, Sam Shockley ended up attempting to escape twice. The first escape attempt was on May 21st, 1941. Sam Shockley was involved in the escape attempt with fellow inmates named Joe Kretzer, Arnold Kyle, and Lloyd Barkdahl. They attempted to escape from one of the workshops that was kind of on the edge of the island. They held numerous guards hostage while attempting to saw through some steel bars. However, after about an hour, they weren't successful at sawing through the bar windows, and they ended up releasing the guards. The warden at the time, named James Johnston, talked to one of the other inmates who was attempted to escape, named Lloyd Barkdahl, and he convinced Warden James Johnston that Sam was not really involved in the plot, and Sam was released and sent back to his cell. Sam Shockley's second escape attempt happened nearly 5 years later on May 2nd, 1946. This is the escape attempt that most people dub the Battle of Alcatraz. So Sam Shockley, of course, attempted to escape with, again, Joseph Kretzer, the same inmate he attempted to escape with 5 years earlier, as well as Bernard Coy, Marvin Hubbard, and several other inmates. They, of course, attempted to get access to the gun gallery, as they knew once they got access to the gun gallery, they would have not only weapons, but the key that they needed to get out of the main area into the yard. And once they got into the yard, they could climb the wall and escape. However, their escape attempt got foiled when the officer who had the key actually was one of the ones who got stuck in a cell, as the inmates, of course, held the officers hostage. The particular officer ended up hiding the key, and so they couldn't get out of the main area into the yard. Of course, several officers were killed during that battle, and Sam Shockley ended up being tried for, of course, his attempted escape and the killing of the guards. Again, keep in mind that Sam Shockley's defense team was arguing profusely that, for one, Sam Shockley, of course, had the mental state of an 8-year-old, like we discussed earlier, and the fact that, from what other inmates were saying during that escape, basically that Sam was just running around acting like a crazy man. And other inmates, such as James Quillen, Edwin Sharp, Jack Pepper, etc., made statements that Sam was running up and down the corridors carrying a wrench and wearing an officer's jacket. Sam did not say anything. He didn't encourage any of the other inmates to kill the officers. He didn't think that Sam knew what was going on. The defense team attempted to get some psychiatrists to interview Sam for the trial. However, the judge, named Judge Goodman, denied a request. On December 21st, 1946, Sam, along with Myron Thompson and Clarence Carnes, were all found guilty of murdering the 2 guards, even though, again, Sam did not have any direct involvement in that. Carnes was 19 at the time, so he was spared the death penalty. However, Myron Thompson and Sam Shockley were not spared the death penalty. They were actually given the death penalty. And when Sam's lawyers found out that Sam was given the death penalty, they were all in great disbelief. Now, Myron Thompson and Sam were both actually executed simultaneously in the San Quentin gas chamber on December 3rd, 1948. All right, guys, we're coming up now to the grave of Sam Shockley. Now, he is buried here next to his mother and father, and it says Baby Shockley. Now, I don't know if that was Sam's son or if that was his brother, but regardless, this is the grave, final resting place of Sam Shockley. Now, I had to kind of clean up the grave as it was covered by this moss here, so hopefully you can still read it. Now his mother died September 12th, 1920. Her name was Sally. His father, R.S. Dick Shockley, died May 9th, 1932. So both of his parents obviously died before Sam did. Again, let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. This case in general was just incredibly fascinating to me, just learning about Sam Shockley and the fact that he attempted to escape twice, but was he really aware of what he was doing and all that? It just really intrigued me, so I was like, I have to come check out his grave and tell you guys the story. I'm not sure if any of you guys have ever heard of his name before, and I just have an interesting fascination with Alcatraz. I've been there a few times. I'm gonna head out of here. Again, let me know what you guys think of Sam Shockley or Alcatraz in general. And again, until next time, again, my name is Harmon. I'll see you guys on the next one. Thank you for watching. Stay safe.